Well, thank you. A big thank you to CED. We really appreciate the support. And a big thank you, of course, to everybody watching this webinar. Cameron's going to be a hard act to follow for sure. So, at any rate, my name is David Stahler. I work with S-5, Director of Distribution. I've worked with them for about 9 years, give or take. Also listening in, we do have a gentleman named Frank Hogan as well. And Frank Hogan has been with the company on and off for about 15 years or so total. So a little bit about my role. I work with our distributors. I work with our end users as well. And I certainly wish that we could be face to face to meet and actually go through this. But next time, right? So thanks again. Really appreciate it. So this course is one NABCEP. And I'm going to leave this slide up for a couple seconds here. Please email Christy. She works with us at webinars@s-5.com. And just let her know you took this class with me, David Stahler, today for CED. If for some reason you lose her email or whatever, just reach out to CED and they can get you squared away for sure. I won't read the copyright, but obviously all of this material is copyrighted. So what we're going to go over today is best practices for installing solar and metal roofs. I'm assuming many of you have used our product before and are somewhat familiar with S-5. In this course, we're going to go over very basically now, guys, the basics of metal roofing and metal roof components and just how widespread their use is. Because often people don't realize how many roofs are out there. And there's a reason for that. We'll discuss that. Going to go over why metal roof is such a perfect platform for solar and just for kind of the green energy movement as a whole. We're going to go over a comparison of mounting methods. What are the main mounting methods for attaching solar on a metal roof? And then some best practices for installing solar on a metal roof. I won't bore you with the rest. You can read the what the course will cover in detail. This is our course layout. I'll leave that up for a second. I'm not gonna read through them all. We will start with a little bit of history on us, what makes us different, and a little bit of history on metal roofing, and then we'll jump into the other 7 bullet points there. All right, a little bit about us. As I mentioned, I've been with the company 9 years. We started out as a very small family-owned company. Some of you might know Rob Haddock. He is a real live cowboy. If you've ever come by our booth at the trade show, you guys know that. Our expertise as a company is 100% on the metal roofing end of things. We were born out of metal roofing. Rob started as a contractor, had a contracting company, 18, 19 years old, and basically went into metal roof consulting, and he became a metal roof forensic consultant. And yes, there is such a thing. When something goes wrong on a roof, often the metal roof company, the manufacturer of the metal roof, will hire Rob to investigate, figure out what happened. So why am I telling you this? Because everything we do is with the betterment and the metal roof in mind. We're not going to do anything to damage that roof. So as you're using our products and as we go through this deck, keep that in mind. If you have questions that pop up, well, I wonder why they do this. There's probably a reason why. And the second thing that was really important is that it's easy for you, the installer, the contractor, to actually use our product. So that's it. We are a manufacturer. We actually innovate the product, and then we manufacture the product, and then we test the product. So we're definitely a testing company, and then we bring that product to market and we educate. And a lot of what we've done has been educating on metal roofs and doing things what we call the right way. So that's a little bit about Rob, a little bit about our testing. What you're looking at here is a metal roof clamp, an S-5 clamp. It's the smallest clamp that we actually manufacture. It's what we call a mini clamp or a one set screw clamp. And this question comes up often, particularly with our solar partners, which is, hey, I'm really worried I'm going to either damage the roof or that the clamp isn't strong enough. From a strength standpoint, what you're looking at here is what we call the ultimate load. So this got over 1 ton before something yielded. What I want you to take away is that the weak link will not be the roof clamp on a standing seam metal roof. That's 99.9% of the time. It's going to be the roof clip, the clip that attaches the roof, or the buckling capacity of the seam. And what I mean by buckling capacity is what you see here. Something will start to yield. I mentioned briefly, we're a testing company. We've performed over 3,000 panel tests. When I use the word panel, I'm talking roof panel, not PV panel. So this enables your company, the engineer or the designer to actually design the system, convert this to miles per hour. So when a customer says, well, how strong is S-5? Again, the weak link is going to be the clamp. The weak link will actually probably be the PV panel, but in terms of the roof structure, it's not going to be the clamp. We've performed, as I mentioned, well over 3,000 plus tests, and all of these tests are available. We publish all of our data on our website. We are the manufacturer. Because of that, we are able to control everything we do in our plant. It is an ISO certified 9001 plant. All of our materials are certified and we are regularly audited. We have a number of certifications, UL, FM, and others that you see listed up there. So we are 100% made in the USA. Again, we own the manufacturer. We are the manufacturer, one and the same. So because of that, we're able to control what we do. Pardon me, S-5 is installed on well over 2 million roofs, and that's worldwide. That's important because we know exactly how our roof is going to perform in all different climates. It doesn't matter what those climates are. And because we've been around for almost 30 years, we've actually outlived our warranty. Our warranty is 25 years, which is an industry best. So a little bit about metal roofing. I'm in Colorado. I know Cameron said he was in Arizona. I'm actually on the western slope of Colorado, so not too terribly far from Phoenix. But many of you are on the East Coast. For those that are anywhere historic, you probably have seen plenty of metal roofs on residential. Metal roofs have been around for thousands of years, okay? 3 millennia, almost 3,000 years. It's not a new thing. For those of you that have had the opportunity to travel around the world, particularly to the Middle East and Europe, I'm sure you've got photos and photos full of metal roofing. But did you ever stop to ask yourself, why? Why is there so much metal roofing? Today, we don't think of it as being a lot of metal roofing compared to other roofing types. So this is Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, St. Marcos Cathedral, Blue Mosque in Istanbul, and of course, Notre Dame, which unfortunately we just celebrated its year anniversary of the fire, or the Great Fire as I call it. So what are some reasons folks use metal roofs many years ago, and what are some reasons folks are still using it today? So folks have been using metal roof on some of the most famous architectural buildings, and today some of the world's biggest businesses use metal. Well, one reason is availability. 2 is durability. It's going to last a long time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So it's definitely still a favorite choice today. So where can you find metal roofing? Metal roofing is found all over the place. S-5 is a metal roof attachment company, and it's not just solar that we do. And I want to emphasize that point again, anything you attach to a metal roof. So this is IBM World Headquarters in New York. This has a S-5 snow retention system on it, but you'll notice IBM chose a metal roof. NATO World Headquarters in Brussels, again, a metal roof. S-5 is on that in the form of fall protection. I do want to mention that we are the most widely used product in fall protection systems in terms of attaching to the metal roof, but we're always engineered and designed by the fall protection company. You do not want to just tie off to an S-5 clamp. We do not recommend it. We do not recommend the clamp for fall protection. It's used as part of an entire fall protection system. I know I often get asked by solar folks about that. So just wanted to address that. This is NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratories. This is in my neck of the woods in Colorado. I used to live just outside of Golden in Boulder, Colorado. So I have friends who have worked here in the past. And we are on this particular campus, as well as metal roof, of course, but we're on this particular campus. And this job was done in conjunction with SunEdison. And you're going to find out that SunEdison is one of the companies that endorses us. So we did solar on this. We did all the roof walkways on this as well. Apple. This was the largest roof mount array in North America. I think it's still either the top in North America on a metal roof or right up there. Almost 7.5 megawatts. It's the Apple complex. And they chose metal roofing. Also, every Costco, they use metal roofing, and we're on every Costco ever built. We're also all over the Apple job. We did the fall protection on the Apple job. We did the solar panels on the Apple job with direct attach. And millions of homes are starting to use metal. So why is that? Well, cost has come down. The cost has come down on metal roofing, so we're seeing a lot more of it. Just some facts so you can understand a little bit better about how metal roofing works. So metal roofing is about 31% of the commercial industrial roof market. Often in these types of applications, they're over what they call open structural framing. So there's no decking on it, which is why, and we're going to learn more about this, it's really important to spread the load on a metal roof. You don't want to attach less frequently, you want to attach more frequently. So 31% and growing. You might be saying to yourself, wow, well, that's almost a third of the commercial and industrial market. Why don't I see more of them? Well, they're low slope typically. So they're going to be a 1/12 pitch or a half 12 pitch. They're not going to be very steep. So often you don't even see them. We make up about 13% of the residential market. Not much, but it's growing. In the 9 years I've been here, it started, and don't quote me on this, it was about 8 or 9%. I remember doing a presentation for CED many years ago and discussing this very point that it was a very small percentage at the time. And it's growing mostly because of the cost perspective, and there's good news and bad news about that. The good news is it's growing, and the bad news is there's some very cheap stuff out there, cheap roofs out there. So when typically, not always, typically these will be over wooden decks or plywood decks or OSB. Some sort of decking will be underneath it. So in total, well over 2 billion square feet of metal roofing are installed each year. Guys, that's a lot of metal roofing. That number continues to grow, and that's over the last 4 decades, and that number is growing annually. The most recent numbers mimic that growth, so it's not going down. It also means there's a heck of a lot of it out there. So let's talk a little bit about longevity and why it's important. If you're going to put a PV array on a roof, you want that roof to have a long life expectancy. As technology is getting better, and you just heard that in the previous presentation, and things are lasting longer, like PV arrays. We're seeing warranties, and you guys tell me 25 to 30 years, but the life expectancy is well beyond 30 years. You don't want to put that on a roof that doesn't have at least that equal in its life expectancy. This is an example in Germany of a 28-year-old roof. The roof's already 28 years old, and it has at least 35 plus years left. So it's going to be retrofitted for PV. And this picture was some years ago. I want to say maybe 10 years ago or something like that. So from a sustainability standpoint, so that was from a sustainability and a durability standpoint, how long does Galvalume? Galvalume is a trade name. It's the Galvalume and Zincalume is a coating that goes over the roof. It's the bare material of the roof itself to give it all of its protective coating. So the color, if a roof is red or blue, whatever color it is, there's no protective coating in that. It's literally just for aesthetics. The Galvalume steel standing roof has a life expectancy of 60 to 70 years. And roofs will last a lot longer than that. It's also recycled at almost 73%. So it's the most recycled construction material available. Coated steel roofs have a life expectancy of 60 plus years. Beginning to see a pattern here. I mentioned that if you happen to live like in the Pennsylvania or Boston area, and you've ever walked around town and looked at all the old historic homes, you probably have seen a lot of metal roofs. Some metal roofs have been in service for much more than 200 years. And again, they're 100% recyclable. So they make complete economic sense from a sustainability and from a durability standpoint. There's two main categories of metal roofing, and I want to try to take some of the mystery and myth out of metal roofing for you. And we're going to do this real quickly. I'm happy to answer more questions at the end of it. There are two primary categories of metal roofing. The first is what you see here. It's called SSMR, standing seam metal roofs. Now, I came out of the building materials. So I would say building materials folks and construction folks and folks that do what we do. I'm not a rocket scientist, and I can tell you the metal roofing industry is definitely not. So you might guess why they call it a standing seam metal roof. It's because the seam is literally standing. These are also called concealed fastened roofs. Concealed fastened roofs simply means that the fastener is concealed. You can't see it. And that's that clip you see in that upper left-hand picture. That's called a roof clip. That's what attaches the roof to the structure. So standing seam panels always use concealed fasteners for their attachment. You can't see them. They come in all, metal roofs come in all different shapes and sizes. Standing seams come in all different shapes and sizes. Just like anything else, they're often application specific. They'll have, of course, a price sensitivity, a price point, durability. So depending on the environment, are they looking for an architectural panel? Is it residential? Is it going to be commercial or industrial? That will often determine the type of standing seam metal roof they use. Here's an example of some of the different shapes, sizes that they come in. But the one thing they all have in common, again, is that they're all concealed fixed. I'll do that again. That's the fanciest I have in my presentation. I'm not big on the special effects. But for those of you that have used our products, you know we're not a one-size-fits-all company. For those of you that haven't used our products before, why aren't we a one-size-fits-all? David, why don't you just have one big clamp, stick it on all the profiles, and we're good to go? When you do that, you're going to give something up. You're either going to give up cost, performance, and when I say performance, this is perhaps just as important as cost, is strength. Because strength equals cost. The less frequently I can attach, the stronger the product is, the more I'm going to save. And then the third part is what I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, which is we want to be contractor installation friendly. It needs to be easy for you to fit the widget onto the seam profile. So that is why we're not a one size fits all. I did not try my video in our dry run the other day, so we're about to find out just how well this works. This is how a standing seam metal roof is attached. That's the roof clip. This is called a snap together profile because it simply snaps together. There's a male and female part. Again, they come in all different shapes and sizes. I'm going to go back a screen just to point out, I don't want to get too in depth, but if you hopefully y'all can see my cursor, the snap together seams, again, no extra tools needed. They literally are like Legos. Then there's what they call mechanically seamed roofs. Mechanically seamed roofs, pardon me, they do require a seaming machine. But keep in mind, metal roofing's been around a long time, so manipulating metal with a tool has been done for many, many, many years. So at any rate, the next type is what we call mechanically seamed roofs. These are going to be the strongest types of roofs there are, particularly in respect to wind uplift. They come in a single fold, which is what you see here, which simply means it's been seamed once, or it could be seamed to 180 degrees or seamed twice, so it's at a complete vertical. The second category of roofing is what we call exposed fastened roofing. For our purposes, I want to keep it really simple. There's two categories of exposed fastened roofs. One is what we're going to generally refer to as trapezoidal shaped roofs. But when we say that, we're going to call them trapezoidal exposed fastened roofs, because you can also have a mechanically seamed trapezoidal shape, as you saw on that previous slide. Again, just as a refresher, that is a trapezoidal mechanically or snap block. So it is a standing seam roof. This category is screw fastened, exposed fastened, through fastened. It just simply means you can see the fastener. So we'll call these trapezoidal exposed fastens. And then the second type of exposed fastened is corrugated. They all have one thing in common. They all have holes in them. So if they have holes in them, the only way to attach to them is to put more holes into them. This is an example of a trapezoidal exposed fastened roof. You can see the fasteners. Again, you can see the fasteners. They come in some sort of trapezoidal shape. This is specifically called an R panel. And then they have what they call ag panels and 5V crimps and all sorts of different names. Again, the key takeaway I want everybody to come away with is, if you see this type of roof, it is not a corrugated roof. It is a exposed fastened trapezoidal. Corrugated roof is that wavy pattern that we often see in the cardboard. And this has a lot of integrity, believe it or not, because of those waves. This is also an exposed fastened roof, but this is what we call corrugated. So what are the main methods for mounting solar on metal roofs? There's three main categories. The first is tilt. And I wish we were face to face so I could have everybody raise their hand and say, how many tilt jobs have you done in the last 12 to 24 months? We wouldn't get very many folks saying they've done a lot of tilt on a metal roof. Tilting is still done on other roof types, but not as often on metal roofs. And why not? Well, first, it's going to cost you more money, right? Because it's going to have to be engineered and designed. It is going to maximize module efficiency, but you're also going to lose some space on that. So when I started 9 years ago, I used to see a few of these projects. And when I say a few, a couple, 2, 3, 4 a month. I haven't seen any in years. That's because of the efficiency of the PV modules. They've become more efficient, and the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. The premium cost of tilting is just not economically justified. And when you get to a metal roof, there's an industrial or commercial size roof, there's often tons and tons and tons of space, and it's just not worth it to do it. The second method, and most common, and probably what most of you do, is planar to the roof, just using linear rail or racking, right? It's what we all do. This method can be used on an S-5 clamp or bracket, and that's what we invented back in the early 90s. And then the third method is what we call direct attach. And if you remember, I said, hey, we really are an education and innovation company, and after we innovate it, we really want to educate on the best way to do this. We started educating on direct attach technology, which is a term we trademarked over 10 years ago. If you look around the industry now, you're going to see competitive products using direct attach. You're going to see racking companies that either have micro rails, shorter pieces of rail, or have their own direct attach technology. This is what we do. And this is, I get really excited about this because we do change the way, not just the solar industry, but other industries we plan, think about, and do metal roof attachment. So this is called direct attach. This is the PV kit. It eliminates the rail because if you look at this, there's already rails on the roof. In other parts of the world, this is very, very, very common. And that's because of cost. It's very expensive to ship rails, and it's expensive, of course, to move them around logistically. Just talk to any CED branch about that, or any distributor about any item that is long. They're incredibly logistically challenging to do. As you all know, there's a cost associated with that. We'll talk about that later. But it's becoming more the norm here in the US as well. The reason, by the way, why it's more the norm overseas is because they lag behind. So they took this technology right away when it came out, direct attach. And here in the United States, they'd already been doing solar for many, many years and are doing racking. So whether it's a standing seam roof, a corrugated roof, or trapezoidal exposed fastened, doesn't matter, or what we call face fastened, they all have one thing in common. They have the rails built in. The customer already paid for them. So these make it really easy to mount solar. It also makes it really easy to mount anything, again, to a metal roof, not just solar. There's a ton of them. So what are common standing seam spacing? One of the things you'll hear about with direct attach is, well, you're at the mercy of the seam spacing. Yep, you sure are. But what is typical seam spacing? Typical seam spacing is 12 to 24 inches. Are there panels that are wider? Yep. Is there going to be a limitation of when you can use direct attach? You could probably use it about 85% of the time, give or take. So 12 to 24 inches on standing seam. The good news is on exposed fasten panels, face fasten panels, they're even closer. They're going to be 6 to 12 inches. And on corrugated, closer yet. So on trapezoidal, face fastened roofs, any type of face fastened roof, it's extremely easy to attach with direct attach because there's so many rails already on. So let's talk a little bit about our attachment solutions for mounting solar using the three methods. There is a clamp selection tool on our website. We also publish our load test tables. If we have time at the end, I can jump onto our website and show you live. But if you go to the resources tab, then go to the clamp selection tool, it will bring up a series of photographs with all of the different roof profiles that are out there. The other thing we have is, if you see on this to the right of resources, is product support. Product support is available by calling us or by going to the product support tab and filling out a ticket. There's also a phone number on there as well, so I won't give you the phone number. It's easy to find on our website, and you can call CED as well. So our technical support can help you ID the roof. The load test tables, which you see above the clamp selection tool, if you know the roof panel manufacturer and the roof panel name, you can look up the exact load tests, or you can use our clamp selection tool. So there's a lot of information on our website to help you ID that. If all that fails, take a picture Google Earth doesn't do us a lot of good. Often we'll have end users call us up and say, David, it's a metal roof. And I get the Google Earth picture and I'm like, it's a roof. The more information you can get us, the better. If you can get the roof manufacturer and panel name and a photo, that's even better. Because sometimes what was specified in the original specification isn't always what ends up on the roof. So if you take a picture of a snap lock profile, this is called a hem, where they hem over the end of it, so it looks nice and neat and finished. You're going to need to open that up so we can see inside of it. Again, these are all snap lock profiles. You would do the same thing with a mechanically seamed roof. If it's a trapezoidal shape, you can see here, this is an example of somebody who sketched it out, told us exactly what was underneath, 2x4 wood, purlins, 24 inches on center. I mean, the more information you can get, the better. And this is a little sketch of a mechanically seamed roof. It's a single fold. That's all we need, just whatever you can get us. So when using, I'm only going to talk about rail mount right now. If you're using rails, S-5 has 4 different options to attach rails. The first is the Protea bracket. This is by far the most common bracket to use for trapezoidal roofs. It's going to fit most, but not all. It does attach just into the sheet of the roof. It comes with the fasteners. We have a special piercing fastener that I'll talk more about a little bit later. I'll mention now that use the fasteners that come with it. Our fastener technology, I know that kind of sounds funny or like it's a fastener, but our fastener technology is custom. We worked with a company to actually make this fastener the way we needed it. It's not going to leave any swarf or metal droppings on the roof, which some of you might know is very bad for metal roof. It causes corrosion. Our fastener doesn't remove any parent material. It actually creates a pocket. So really important on that. I'll mention that a couple of times. It's height and width adjustable, meaning it will fit different dimensions of these trapezoidal shapes, but it's also adjustable up and down. Sometimes you'll get wonkiness in a metal roof or waviness, and that wonkiness or waviness can be removed by adjusting up and down. So like rails, you can actually make sure that that PV array is straight. Now, the other thing I want to mention on this is often, as I mentioned, these roofs, commercial and industrial, are very low slope. So you're not going to see it anyway. You're not even going to see that wonkiness or waviness. No L-foot required. Do not stack components. As you're going to find out, this is a multi-use product, meaning that this L-foot can come off and rotate. I'll show you a picture of it, and be used with our direct attached PV kit. So no L-foot needed. A newer choice is called the solar foot. The solar foot is different in that it's going to cost less than the Protea bracket. It's only to be used for rails. So it's going to attach into the decking, which from a metal perspective, we like. From a solar perspective, it often is thought, and this thinking is a little old school, is, hey, I don't want to attach in the flat of the roof into the plane of the water because I'm going to have water migration. Well, butyl sealant was invented, think right around, I think it was World War I, it might have been World War II, but it was invented as a sealant, and that's what it's used for today. And all of our brackets come with factory applied sealant. So at any rate, this attaches into the structure. It has a built-in stud, integrated stud, that an L-foot from any rail producer will fit over it, and it comes with an M8 nut, and so you would just tighten that L-foot down. And you can rotate that solar foot and use it however you need to, but it does have to go into structure. Purlin, decking, OSB, it has to go into something. All of our products have factory applied sealant of some sort. When we're attaching into the structure, we're using butyl sealant, when we're attaching into the rib, as we do with the Protea bracket, we use EPDM, but they all have a 60+ year lifespan. I can tell you with butyl sealant, it's well above 60 years. It'll be there after the roof is gone. The butyl sealant would still be good. So no extra caulking or anything needed. The next product we have for rails is a VersaGuard, and many of you might be seeing this for the first time. It is an older product, not a newer product. It does attach into the structure, side mount rail only. In case you're wondering what those holes are actually for a snow retention system. So it's a dual use product. It can be used for solar as an L-foot or for snow. It goes in the structure, and it does not come with the fasteners. Why doesn't it come with the fasteners? Well, if we're going into the structure, I don't know what material you're going into. So I don't know if you're going to metal or wood. When you're going into the sheeting with the Protea bracket, we supply the fasteners because we know what you're going into. Many of you have probably used the Versa bracket. The Versa bracket attaches into the structure, but it is designed for snow retention. When it was adopted by the solar industry, it was about 10 years ago. And the solar folks just started using it and sticking an L-foot on it. Please, 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 if you're doing that, that is not the best way to do it. If you can see my camera, you're gonna create a moment arm. You're gonna put an L-foot on top of something, and now you're stacking components, and it's not very stable. So it's designed to be used with bottom mount. You can use it with a PV kit if you wanted to. There are better choices, but it is designed for bottom mount rail. Nobody uses bottom mount rail anymore. When I ask that question, it's even less than the tilt system. So if you're not using bottom mount rail and you're using this product, please, please, please use Solar Foot or use Protea bracket or go to direct attach. Again, it doesn't come with a fastener since I don't know what you're going into, and it has the factory applied sealant. For corrugated roofing, we have two different options. We have one that attaches into the structure and one that attaches into the rib. Core bracket attaches into the structure. It comes with an M8 bolt, does not come with the fasteners, and is compatible with an L-foot, no problem. And then the core bracket 100T, in case you're wondering about our nomenclature on our clamps and on our brackets, that nomenclature stands for something. On the standing seam clamps, the nomenclature S-5S or S-5E or S-5V typically will stand for the type of profile the product will fit. In this case, 100 stands for US market. There's two types of corrugation, what we have here in the United States and what we see overseas, and the dimensions are different. So 100 just denotes the US market. T stands for top fix, means the fasteners go straight down. Now there's two ways you can attach, into the sheeting only, or if you want additional support, you can lag in. And again, this would be for an L-foot attachment, and it must attach into, pardon me, it can attach into the sheeting, or it can attach, you can lag in and attach into the structure. And then the last way is using the rails that are already there. So we're going to talk about the PV kit and just using direct attach and the products that you can use for direct attach. So the PV kit 2.0 is a direct attach technology. It's been around for over 10 years, as I mentioned. Our product is UL 2703 listed. We did work and help to craft language and the test protocols to do all this, because at the time, 10 years ago, none of this existed. So you can see the ground path there within a column from module to module. Those modules are bonded, no different than how you, pardon me, how you guys are doing it. Currently, it comes with either in a mid grab, and we just call that the S-5 PV kit, or the edge grab, which is an S-5 PV kit edge grab. Really simple. Does not come with the clamp because we don't know what clamp or brackets you're going to need. It does come partially pre-assembled, meaning the stud and the disc. The disc is separate, but the stud and the grab are pre-assembled. So this part is assembled to the stud. Those of you that have used our older version of the PV kit, that was not the case. So partially pre-assembled makes it easy. It's going to be very versatile. It'll fit most module thicknesses out there. We have had in design for some years a frameless glass on glass design. So if that ever comes to fruition where we start seeing more of that, we would certainly bring that product to market. Only one tool is needed for installation. For many of you, you're used to the fact that we've used a hex drive. With an Allen bit tip in every single box. We are changing to Torx, so please check with CED to see whether they have the Allen. It doesn't make a difference. Just know that we will be changing to the Torx. And the reason it's important is if you're using the PV kit, you just want to make sure that CED ships you either the Allen or the Torx for both the clamp and the PV kit, because it's one tool for the set screw and the same tool is used for the top bolt. If that's as clear as mud, you can ask me during the Q&A phase. 80% less weight than rails. This is a big deal on roofing because often PV panels can't be attached to a metal roof if it can't bear the load. And so by reducing that load with direct attach, sometimes it allows you to put solar panels on a metal roof that you wouldn't normally be able to do it. It also gives you a 25% better load distribution, meaning you're attaching more frequently, so you're spreading that load and not point loading it, not putting all that load in one location on the roof. And it installs with the module, meaning it reduces the layout time. It makes it very easy to install. All of our components are 100% aluminum and stainless. Single piece edge grab. So we used to have a 2-piece edge grab, and so now it is just a 1-piece edge grab. By the way, if you forgot to order edge grabs, you could use the mid grab as an edge grab. It's just an aesthetics issue. It works just fine. We also added slots that are hard to see in this photo, but we added slots to the disc. Those slots are for wire management ties. So you can, and we have a whole presentation. So if you guys start to have a lot of questions on wire management, please do check our website as well. We do give webinars on a weekly basis, and we do have a wire management presentation we give as well. Lower hardware. Low profile hardware adds for a cleaner, more aesthetic look. They are available custom order by Black, so do check with CED on lead times on that. And then it allows for a load reduction, meaning when you're designing the system, you can actually take a load reduction by using our PV kit, and I'll talk more about that. And that's as per ASCE 7, and that's because you're not creating a cell effect on the roof. There's actually a gap between the panels, which allows that air to circulate and flow and not create a big cell. We have plenty of information on our website. We have a YouTube channel. You can watch full install videos. Again, we'll see how this video goes, but I'm going to show a short version of an installation video. So he's going to set the bottom row first. He hand threaded it so he doesn't cross thread it. These have Loctite on them. You don't want to break the Loctite until you're ready to snug it all the way down. So you just want to get it tight enough so you can line up those modules, but not all the way tight, because you want to be able to move those modules. So you're going to get the first column, the first panel at the very bottom set, and then you're going to work your way up the roof. So he can adjust the panels if he needs to. There will be, keep in mind that you will have a correction gap. A normal correction gap is going to be anywhere between 0 to 10 or 12 inches and may occur every 2 to 6 module columns, depending on how it's laid out. Sometimes not at all, but those correction gaps can be used as maintenance walkways Depending on codes and standards and so on and so forth, you can determine what's best on that particular job, and also, of course, how much space you actually have on that roof. So let me let this finish playing through. So it's really easy to put those modules in on the fly. You don't need a special jig or anything like that. So the last thing I want to mention about that is some of you might have heard the term zipper effect. That's one issue we don't have with the PV kit. That's where one module, if it breaks loose, the mid clamp falls to the side, allowing everything else to break loose. And that can happen with rails, but with the PV kit, we've eliminated that issue. I'm sure some of you are thinking, okay, space loss. You just mentioned about your correction gaps and your space loss. Well, how do I maximize all of that with an S-5 PV kit? So direct attach does maximize economy, but sometimes a small space loss, and I just want to address it. Again, a reminder of common standing seam spacing. It's 12 to 24. It's less than 12 when we're talking exposed fasten roofs. So let's take a look first at a module and understanding the attachment zones. That every module manufacturer has a zone where you can and can't attach. And I also want to mention that racking is used just to attach something to. It's not structural at all. It's only used to attach the modules to. So there's no structural integrity to that in terms of the roof or in terms of what it's used for. So with our modules, you can see the green zone, that's the preferred zone for attaching, and then of course yellow, and then red, no clamping is permitted. Let's look at space loss as it pertains to some real S-5 projects. This was the FedEx Federal Express building. It's a 2.4 megawatt job. They use 6 points of attachments, meaning 3 and change. Why 3 and change? Because you're going to be sharing the mid grab. So when we say 6, it's 3 here and 3 here is how we come up with the 6. It's really like 3.2 or 3.1. What's typical? Typical's 2.2 per. Depending on what the wind load requirements are, you can attach as frequently as needed. And we're a value engineering company, so we certainly don't want to over attach just for the sake of attachment. Space loss in this job was 7%, give or take. This was that job in Germany. They didn't want to have a lot of space loss, so they designed it where they had 1% plus or minus. This was in Fort Dix, 1% plus or minus, and you can see they used 4 and 6 points of attachment respectively, 6 in wind zones where it was required as per the engineer. This was in Puerto Rico, 4 points of attachment, 5.5% space loss, and you can see they used those. They had plenty of space, so they left a lot of room for maintenance, walkways, so they don't have to walk on the panels, and we could have a whole conversation about that. But walking on the panels, I think we all know, is if you can avoid it, is definitely a preferred way to do it. One thing I'll mention, since we're on Puerto Rico, my mind immediately goes to storms and hurricanes and so on and so forth. And S-5 has withstood many, many, many hurricanes, including 4s and 5s. So the clamp, again, is extremely, extremely strong. One of the other things we often get asked about is airflow, because with the PV kit, it's a clean, direct attach in general, it's a clean flush look, right? So I also want to mention, in this chapter, we're also going to take a look at the same time at solutions for direct attach on exposed fasten roofs. So what about clearance? If you were to ask a PV module manufacturer, what do they recommend? You guys could tell me better, but what I hear is usually 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, more is better. Just depends on who you're talking to. The fact of the matter is, if you were to hang a module at 10 feet, which we've done, It will not, and there have been lots of studies done on this, it will not be any cooler than if it's 4 inches off the roof. Research shows there's minimal improvement from 3 to 4 inches, and in our own side-by-side, I don't want to call it testing, this is more monitoring, our own side-by-side monitoring, there's no difference between 4 and 6 inches. There's all metal roofs are going to have some sort of pitch, so you're going to get an air plenum, a chimney effect, where that air is going to be pulled through. So the fact is, if you have more space, that could actually have adverse effects on wind uplift. Again, think of a sail, and think of if you've ever been on a sailboat, obviously if you have a hole in the sail, it doesn't work so well. If you don't have a hole in the sail, it works real well. Well, you don't want to have a sail on a roof. That's a bad thing. So I will tell you, with very limited exceptions, all of our products are going to give you at least 3.5 inches. Are there exceptions to that rule? Yes, but they're far and few between. Average standing seam SSMR, standing seam metal roof, is typically 1.5 to 3 inches in height. Once you add in the mounting hardware and the module frame thickness, again, these are plus or minus, you're going to have at least 3.75 inches, if that makes sense. And of course, that's not to the frame, that's to the bottom of the glass, because that's what we're concerned about. So the rib bracket, we have 4 versions of this. The most common version in the US is rib bracket 3. We do have a tool for this online that'll show you how to measure the rib. And we also have a tool called a fitment tool, which is a little metal widget that can be used for this type of roof. And we have one for standing seam type of roofs that you simply install this widget onto the rib and it tells you what to use. So plenty of tools for that. This is to be used with, again, we're talking about PV kit, direct attached solutions. This is to be used only with a PV kit, not with rails. Again, factory applied EPDM. It does come with those same 4 self-piercing fasteners. Those are different than self-drillers. These are piercing that the Protea bracket comes with. So there's not going to be any swarf on that roof, as I mentioned earlier. Also, because these fasteners are going in at an angle, shear, they are incredibly strong. We do publish all of our load tests for exposed fasten roofs as well. There's a slotted hole on the top that allows some adjustability. And then we have our Protea bracket. As many of you know who have used the Protea bracket, it comes set up for an L foot, as we looked at earlier. But if you wanted to reverse that, it can be used with PV kit. This is going to be very, from a cost perspective, less expensive than rails. The best option, I should have mentioned this, is the rib bracket from a cost perspective. That's going to be the most economical option. But if you aren't sure of the dimensions, you couldn't get out there, you couldn't get a photo, you couldn't put the tool on it, you could use a Protea bracket, which is again going to have that adjustability. We have solutions for corrugated as well. We looked at the core bracket and the core bracket 100T, which were designed for L foot. The core bracket 100T PV is designed for PV panels. Like the rib bracket, it has a slot in top, and I should mention both of those brackets, because they're taller, have a wire management channel. Like the rest of our brackets, you're going to have plenty of airflow, give or take 3.8 inches. So I'm happy to answer questions after on that as well. Using direct attach does require a shift, and that shift is often, hey, David, I'm using racking. Can I go, with racking, I'm attaching in portrait. Can I attach S-5 in portrait? So here's the answer. With rail mounting, the modules are installed 90 degrees, right? 90 degrees to the rail. That puts them in portrait. You're going to install the PV kit rails. PV kit modules are also going to be 90 degrees to the rails, but the rails are the roof now, so that happens to put them in landscape. So can you go in portrait? You can. It will be more challenging. You'll probably have more space loss, but if it's a 12 or an 18-inch seam spacing, you can certainly do it, or 24 inches. As you get to 32 inches, you're going to find not only can't you do it in portrait, but you'll be more challenged to do it in landscape. You won't be able to, probably have to use rails as you get to some of those wider seam spacings, which again, not typical. You will see them on what we call insulated panels, will be above typically 32 inches or above. Just another look at the portrait orientation with the PV rail attachment. It's 90 degrees to the rail. And here we are with PV direct attach. It's 90 degrees, but it's in landscape orientation because the rails are the same. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's take a look at a real project. And a couple of comments about cost, and this is really easy for me to talk about because most of our numbers came from CED and Civic Solar, which I'm sure some of you know Civic, and that Civic was purchased by CED. S-5 has had a long-standing relationship with both of these companies, so when possible, we got real quotes, or we use MSRP pricing right off of our website. Or Racking Company's website. So this was an actual project we did. It was 46 by 92, 4,200 square feet. Important, 50 kW was the system size. Pardon me. And we used 150 modules. The seam spacing for both was 16 inches on center. We utilized 68% of the roof with the rails and 68% of the roof with the direct attached PV kit. So rail mounting was done with the S-5V mini clamp. Just a quick note on clamps. Again, we do have all the tools we talked about to help determine what clamp to use. I know many of you are just used to asking for the S-5U or U mini clamp. Please reach out to CED or to ourselves, because I can tell you there will always be a better solution than the U. Better meaning price, and sometimes better meaning performance and ease of installation. So if you're using the U, understand that we probably have a better solution for you. But this used the V mini clamp with both the direct attach. I guess I should mention 4 foot on center for racking and 4 points of attachment. Again, it's 4 points of attachment, but it's going to come out to 2 point whatever because you're sharing the mid grab, and then the edge grabs are standalone. This is the layout design, 6 by 25, so 150. This is done with rails. You can see that they are in portrait. And then here is the direct attach with PV kit, still 150 modules, but it was 10 rows by 15. So let's look at labor, time, cost comparison. So on the left-hand side is the rails. It was 96 man hours. We used $50 per hour for labor cost. 6 days, 8 hours per day. So that's the 96 hours. With S-5, there's a savings, 67 man hours. So approximately 4 days. This is a lot of information, so let me just direct your eyes first to the rail mounting. Just look at the number of shear parts that there are. Then go down to the total MSRP, $5,400, and take a look at the shipping cost, $733. Shipping is a big advantage with an S-5 PV kit. We're also going to talk a little bit more about weight. Notice the weight, 970 pounds, hence cost. Total cost, $6,100. With S-5, look at how few line items there are. These materials will fit into a 5-gallon bucket you can go down and buy at Home Depot, one of those painter's buckets, and put all of the parts in. You can also pre-assemble the S-5 in your warehouse onto a PV kit and throw those into the bucket. So not a lot of parts. Now take a look at the total MSRP, $3,100, and shipping, $287, less than 300 bucks. Project cost summary, we had a 42% savings with the PV kit. The labor cost at 30%. And again, the big one is that shipping cost. And we're not even talking about the logistics of moving it around we sell through distribution. So for our distributor partners, that's a big deal. And now for our end users, our contractors, what about moving it around on the job site? So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but the installed cost is a 38% savings. On a large job, like an Apple-sized job where you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 megawatts, you'll see costs well below 5 cents a watt. Other factors to consider. I alluded to weight earlier. You really need to spread the attachment points on the roof, but also how much can that roof actually hold? So 159 pounds with S5. So let's take a look at the added load. The weight savings is almost 85%, 0.052 pounds per square foot with S5 compared to rails at 0.345 pounds per square foot. So that's huge. Points of attachment, spreading the load. The biggest issue we see when it comes to rails versus PV kits, often when folks use rails is they want to attach less frequently, right? They want to go 7 or 8 feet. Our partners on the rail side, like Iron Ridge, they understand that that's a bad way to design, and they'll typically attach somewhere between 3 and 5 feet. That's usually what you'll see. So points of attachment, 330 to 264. The roof space required was the same, so you get 25% more attachment points, which is a big deal. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Here's a 250 kW job, so this is a different job, but it shows the flatbed, and you all know the cost of this, and moving it around the job site is very challenging. Here's S5. This is the same 250 kW job, and it loads in the back of the pickup truck. Again, you can pre-assemble in the website, in your warehouse, and then install it on the roof. Average savings when using direct attach, 30 to 50% on hard goods, 30% on labor. Again, that freight number is huge, 60%. Weight savings on the roof and the transport is that 85% number, but space savings in your warehouse is huge. Logistics, it's hard to quantify the savings in terms of logistics. So a couple of things to just take a look at as we finish up here is what can be attached. Please keep in mind, whether you're using rails or whether you're using direct attach PV kits, order extra clamps and brackets to attach your ancillaries, your wire management, your microinverters. Again, we do have a wire management class where we go into this a lot deeper. Anything that you attach to a roof, walkways, handrails, cameras, surveillance equipment, monitoring equipment, like you see here. Combiners, combiner boxes, microinverters, all that stuff. We have our own methodology for attaching these ancillaries, these module level electronics. You can use what we call a gripper fix, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. But if you're just going to be attaching just a microinverter, it's going to be easier just to attach it directly to a clamp or directly to the module, PV module itself. We also have something called the flange adapter strap, which is what you see on the center. That strap is similar to the integrated flange you see over on the right. Those are used in Europe a lot. In the States, The flange adapter strap tends to be a better choice because it's going to fit on any of our clamps and brackets, and you can angle it, right? Because it's adjustable, it's got the slot, so you can put it in at any angle that you need. That would be the advantage to using that over just directly to a clamp, but there's really not one right or wrong way. Many of you have probably used Unistrut. Gripper Fix is our version for metal roofing of Unistrut. It's not going to rust. It's pre-cut. It's designed to be very easy to use on exposed fasten roofs or standing seam metal roofs. Again, it can be used to attach larger items like satellite dishes and HVAC units and wire management, stuff like that. This is the core bracket 100T PV. You can see it being used with the PV kit again, and just some examples of how to attach various electronics to it. Another look at microinverters and optimizers being attached directly to the module frames. Again, there's a cornucopia of ways to do it and a myriad of clips and attachments for wire management. I want to mention solar folks, as you know, often when it comes to metal, it can be a little intimidating. Understand that you can damage a metal roof. And we're endorsed by the metal roof industry. Almost every major metal roof manufacturer endorses us. So make sure that whatever product you're using, if it's not an S-5, that it's not going to void the roof warranty. And then the second part, which we talked about earlier, is there's other products out there. Often they use a different way of actually fastening to the rib. Sometimes it can damage the rib, but often it's just not very strong. We use a mechanical connection. Often they'll use what's called a friction connection. So do check with the metal roof manufacturer. We're endorsed by many industry experts. This gentleman, Ange Brazillo, was the co-inventor of that Galvalume product we talked about earlier. That's the coating for the metal roof. A gentleman in our industry, Doug Claxton, Solar Revolution, he's used our product for many, many years, and he won't use anything but direct attach. Again, metal roofing, back to metal roofing. This is the vice president of marketing for a company called McElroy. They only use S-5. And this gentleman, some of you may know and have heard of Son Edison, Jigger Shaw. He's the inventor of the PPA, so he endorses us. And again, made in the USA. That's our plant in Texas. We're in Iowa Park, Texas. And I'll mention that we are not experiencing any major delays right now at our plant. We're still running full capacity. Most of our materials come from the United States. 90% of our raw materials come from North America. So we're not really experiencing a lot of issues, which is a nice thing about having our own plant. Before we go on to questions, again, approved course, email address, webinars at s-5.com. The lady's name is Christy. If you want to say hello to her, great. If you just want to email her and just say, hey, I need my credits, no problem.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much for your time today. We have a few questions before we let you go here. First question in, do these no rail attachments come in black? So I believe she's talking about the PV kits.
They do. They're custom by Black, and they should check with you guys, and you guys will check with us. And, there is an additional lead time on that, but it shouldn't be too bad. So the answer is yes.
Awesome. Another question. There's been a few of these that came in. Can we share the S-5 presentation to the installers?
We can. It is copyrighted, but yep, I don't think that's going to be a problem at all.
Awesome. Another one.
I'll get that to you, and then or we'll chat after tomorrow or whatever. And
yeah, we'll blast it out.
Okay, awesome.
With exposed fastened roofs, do screws and gaskets installed with the roof have to be replaced after a certain amount of years?
Awesome question, and I truly wish I had more time to talk about it in greater detail. The answer is no. You always want to make sure you use the right fastener. Typically, exposed fasten roofs, like everything else, have a life expectancy, and those will start to, you know, after 30 or 40 years, you're going to need to just replace the whole entire roof, not just the fasteners. Using the incorrect fasteners can cause a lot of issues. What we recommend is that you purchase the fasteners with the product through CED. CED has access to all of the fasteners. If we do not include the fastener with the bracket, we sell the recommended fasteners separately to CED. So those are completely available. The next thing I'll mention is often people think they have to goop it or put additional, and I have pictures of this that I wish I could show if we had more time. Think they need to put some sort of sealant. Again, please do not do that. If you have questions, please call our technical support line. This can actually cause more issues. One, if you expose a lot of those sealants to the sun, they're just going to flake off, which is why ours are in a reservoir. Of course, they're not exposed to the sun, so they're not, the butyl sealant tends to degrade. Sun is its enemy. So when it's in that reservoir, you're not going to get any degradation. It's not going to break down. It's going to stay pliable like chewing gum. But when you put additional caulking on it, you can actually leave a path for water migration. So nothing needed, nothing extra needed, if that answers the question, Christian.
I think it does. I have a question for you. I noticed that you said Versa brackets should not be used with L feet.
Correct.
What is the, and I believe you answered this during the presentation, but what is the proper bracket to use in place of what most people would use the Versa bracket for?
Absolutely. A better choice would be the Protea bracket or the solar foot. The solar foot is that integrated, let me go back here. Hopefully y'all can still see my screen. I put the solar foot up on the screen. It would be this or this. That would be a better choice. The reason, if you have an engineer designing an L foot on top of a Versa bracket for a moment arm, or think of it as a lever point, think of it as a hammer. And the longer the hammer, if you're trying to take a nail out of something, the longer the hammer, the more leverage you have. So in that instance, having a longer handle is really good. But when you have a longer handle on a metal roof, you're going to create a moment arm and bad things will happen. So do try to avoid that unless you've specifically had an engineer designing it. If for some reason you are just determined to do it that way, attaching more frequently is going to be absolutely key. I would not use it in wind country or anywhere else. If they're that set on it, please reach out to us or directly to CED, whatever salesperson you work with there, and they can reach out to us. There's a bracket called the rib bracket. It's our first generation. So it's not the rib bracket 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's a lower profile version of that. We used to make it. The reason we stopped making that was because people were putting L feet on it. It is a better choice than the Versa bracket. So if they absolutely want to go into the rib and they absolutely want to use an L foot, it would be the old version of the rib bracket. Does that answer your question, Christian?
Perfectly. Yep, I know there's a lot of users of the Versa bracket out there, so I wanted to make sure that we addressed that one more than once.
There are, yeah, thank you for asking that. And it's definitely, it's something that we have fought to educate the market on for many years. It's been extremely challenging. And again, don't feel bad. The reason it was used was because at the time, 10 years ago, there were no other solutions. So the solar folks who are also innovators just took it and ran with it. But
yep,
definitely a better way to do it.
In case anybody is questioning or wondering, we do stock both the solar foot and the Versa, but our solar foot is now our primary mover in that regard. So hopefully people start utilizing that a little bit more. and moving away from the Versa bracket as it's not the appropriate bracket to use.
Any of our products, let me just mention this, CED can get any of our products typically within days. Not gonna say always, but typically within days.
Yep, yeah, it's super easy for us to grab.
Yep, even if it's a non-stock for them guys, they can get it. So if you've heard anything different, please talk to Christian. They can get the product in days, typically.
Yep, got 2 more questions for you.
Fire.
Have you ever had to deal with a roof leak issue with S-5 brackets?
With S-5 brackets, that's a bit of a loaded question. The long and short of it is no, not in terms of using the fasteners that we recommend. You will not have an issue. Does that mean that the roof doesn't have previous leaks from previous holes that were put in it if they weren't done correctly, or depending on how old that roof is? You know, with that, we always have to rely on who did whatever before we came along, right? And we're assuming that that structure was attached correctly. The one thing I will tell you with metal, any roofing, but with exposed faceted metal roofing, is just to check that life expectancy. If the roof looks rusted and like it's in bad shape, it's probably in bad shape. There are companies out there that, of course, that will go out and do a site assessment for you on a roof to be able to tell you whether it makes, how many years you have left of life expectancy. And then you guys can run the ROI and see if it makes sense to even put a solar array on it. But no, the answer is if you use our fasteners the way we intend, butyl and EPDM, we do not see issues with that. Butyl is what's been used in the metal roofing industry for, when I say ever, since World War II. I mean, that's what they use. It's a common product. It's used on lap seams for standing seam metal roofs. It's used on exposed fasten roofs. That's tried and true.
Awesome. We got one last question coming from a few of a handful of your judgments.
There you go. Can you ask the question again?
Yep, sorry. If, as an installer in the Carolinas, what are my must-haves as attachments?
Can we clarify that question? When we say must-haves, are we talking for standing seam metal roofs? Are we talking what products they should carry?
Yeah, I think for standing seams, what are my go-to ones? If I had to pick a handful that I must have that I should keep in my repertoire as an installer, what are those?
That's a difficult question to ask, because the most, if you're asking what the most common standing seam are out there for residential, it's something called the nail flange. And so you'll run into, particularly in the Carolinas, you'll run into the nail flange profile a lot. And so our S5N, as a Nancy or as a nail flange, is a pretty common clamp that you'll run into. The other one you'll see on residential and light commercial, in addition to the nail flange, is just a snap lock. So the F5F clamp, and the S stands for snap lock, the N stands for nail flange. So those two products are pretty common on residential for standing seam. For exposed fastened, you'll run into the Protea bracket. By far, it's the most versatile. So I would say the Protea bracket, and then once you start to narrow things down on the exposed fasten roofs, is using a PV kit on the appropriate rib bracket. It'll generally be a rib bracket 3. Again, rib bracket 3 tends to fit most of the panels, what we refer to as those trapezoidal panels that we see in the US. I don't want to say all, but many.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, David.
If more questions, please reach out to CED. Please reach out to our technical support line. That number, 888-825-3000. 3432, or just go to our website or homepage and click on the support tab.
Awesome, David. Again, thank you for your time today. It was very